Hello and welcome back to the Whiskey Closet for another blind tasting. Let's get them poured. All right, it's another blind tasting. You know how I love to do blinds, learn about what's in the glass. Here we go. Okay, we got two whiskeys here. They are dramatically different colors. Right off the bat, holy smokes. This one is crazy red, and this one is like just a pale hay type color, very pale. This will be kind of interesting. Again, no idea what I'm drinking, so let's get started. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's get this swirled up. Let's get the glass coated, get the fumes going, really get in there. I think we're in toasted territory here. There's this quality that I have a really hard time describing that I associated with toasted bourbons that I think I'm picking up in both of these. And actually tonight, for the first time ever, it's almost like a cucumber vibe. I've never heard anybody give cucumber as a note in a bourbon tasting before, so obviously that's wrong. But that's what my mind is going to. Speaking of which, I don't know if I've talked about this yet on the channel. One of my favorite things about doing bourbon tasting is to try to let your mind really wander sort of free and come up with some free associations. And you'll come up with some ridiculous words sometimes, and you won't even be able to explain why you came up with that word. And nobody else is going to have used that word. Find those weird notes as they occur to my brain, and then try to correlate that with what other people seem to say when they taste things. And that way, maybe I can start to figure out what the words are that other people use and how those words seem to come across in my own impressions, and sort of learn something about the whiskey that way. Oh my God, that's good. Oh, I'm going to double down on my guess that these are toasted. Um, Sometimes on the palate for a toasted thing, I get what I think of as like a balsa wood sort of in the after finish. It makes me think of like those old balsa wood airplanes you might have played with as a kid. It's not a negative thing. Maybe balsa wood makes it sound kind of negative, but I actually really enjoy it. So I'm getting that little hint of that, but it's not the predominant flavor in this at all, which is maybe partly why this seems so nice. Wow, that is so rich. Beautiful kind of honeyed sweetness right at the beginning. I really like that rich, viscous mouthfeel. And then into these fruity notes, like kind of a strawberry note maybe, in that kind of realm. But then there's this spice character that evolves underneath that sweetness, and the way that those two tones grow together is really enjoyable. And there's a reasonable kind of medium finish, not super long. And the finish is just more of those spices. Really appetizing. All right, I'm going to move on and try B now. The nose of B is a lot sharper than the nose on A. It's that, you know how like a cucumber has that like very fresh, you almost imagine like snapping it, like super fresh aspect. That's kind of what I'm getting. That's what I mean by that cucumber nose. B feels a little sharper, but none of that cucumberness, which tamps it down. It feels a little more traditional bourbon. Like I think I'm getting, classic vanilla notes, classic oak notes. Oh, oh, not what I was expecting. Wow. Way more spice. A very similar kind of honeyed sweetness at the beginning, that nice honeyed sweetness, and then real barrel spice. Very present. Finish goes real quick. And you get that balsa wood note on top. It's good though. A lot more barrel impact in it in B than in A, but it does have a tendency to get a little dry. And sometimes, again, for me, a lot of times that barrel dryness like turns me off immediately. All right, I'm going to spend a little more time with them, and then I'll come up with my overly complicated scores. Okay, we're back. I spent some more time with them, and I scored them. And for A, I scored the nose at a 3. That cucumber note, which I know isn't cucumber, but man, it won't go away. And the more that more time I spend with that note, the less that I was enjoying it. So just a 3 out of 5 stars, which is, not, it doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's good. It's all right. The flavor, though, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because I really like that strawberry note that I keep getting. and I like the balance of spice. There's a finish to it that that kind of almost balsa woody finish that I don't love. So obviously not a 5 out of 5 stars, but a 4 out of 5 stars because it's really nice. And for interest, 4 out of 5 stars. The combination of that cucumber thing, which even though I don't like it, I've never smelled anything like it. So that makes it more interesting. And also that strawberry note is really interesting too. Which means when I round that out and map it into a 10-point scale, we get a nice 7.3. Meanwhile, on B, for the nose on this one, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Flavor, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because the barrel impact is a little harsh and it doesn't have that strawberry note to balance that out. But for interest, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Basically for the same reason. It's a very interesting journey. It pairs those flavors really well. It does feature that kind of classic toasted character. Let's find out if I'm right that these are toasted, but I really do think it's featuring that. And so I think that makes the interest pretty good, which means it also got a 7.3. So these things are tied in terms of the stars. However, I also pick which one I have a preference for. And I'm feeling tonight a preference for B. I don't know. It's just, I just keep leaning that way. That beautiful honey sweetness and the way that the honey character fades into the barrel spice and then that interested toasted balsa wood note. And they kind of just, those 3 notes just sort of dance around each other and it fades out. And it's just really very nice and I'm enjoying it. And when I go back to A, earlier I was saying I thought that B was a little more aggressive. I was getting more barrel out of it. And that's true, but when I went back to A, I was finding a lot more barrel in it, just in a different way than I normally feel it. I think it's kind of a unique pour, and it'll be interesting to find out what it actually is. So anyway, a preference for B. Speaking of what they actually are, I'll check the numbers and I'll go look at the key, but I'm going to guess. One of the things that I've preached before in the very few episodes on this channel is not to try to guess what's in the glass. And I did my best. Of course, immediately when I smelled it, I was thinking toasted. And that limits it down very, very quickly. Well, this has been another wildly educational blind tasting. I really thought that they would end up being toasted bourbons, and they are not toasted bourbons. It turns out they're actually both wheated bourbons, which is interesting, but they're not just any wheated bourbons. A is Cleveland Whiskey's Wheat Penny. Hold on, let me get the bottle. Wheat Penny. It says, bourbon whiskey finished with black cherry and toasted oak wood. Hey, I didn't know that. Oh, that makes so much sense now. Oh, that's fascinating. So this is a Cleveland whiskey product. Cleveland whiskey is famous for their super rapid aging, pressure treated method for aging bourbon very quickly. And the Wheat Penny is their wheated release. 1958 Wheat Penny features a mash bill of 51% corn, 35% wheat, and 14% malted barley, finished with black cherry and toasted oak wood. Very good. Very good. Glass B was Blade and Bow. Let me find that one. All right, Blade and Bow from the Stitzel Weller Distilling Company, which is kind of like a reboot of a old distillery that was closed in Prohibition or whatever the story is. Aged in charred American white oak barrels to create whiskey with notes of sweet toasted cereal, warm winter spice, and dried fruits. Matured using the rigorous Solera aging method, preserving our rarest whiskey stocks and the spirit of Stitzel Weller. So yeah, it's Blade and Bow. They do the little keys. Each key has a number on it. This one is number 3, and you can collect them. Okay, so why was this such an educational experience tonight? Well, I will tell you why. It's because when I smelled glass A, I immediately got toasted notes. And I'm still getting them. I'm getting that balsa woody toasty thing. And because this was toasted, I made a huge mistake. And I just assumed that B was probably toasted too. And I was getting similar toasted nose out of B. And I was getting similar toasted notes from the palate on B. Yeah, just because that's what I was expecting to be there. Coming back to it now, I'm still picking up on those same notes. Now I wouldn't call them toasted notes. So it turns out A actually is toasted. The toasted notes were really there, but B is not toasted. And so I allowed that bad assumption to completely influence and color my experience of what I thought I was getting out of this. What I was thinking of as being a toasted note is actually more of like this dusty corn husk note, but it's got like this little extra funk on it. And so you take that dusty corn and you take that funk, and that's why I was like, oh yeah, sure, that's toasted, since I picked up on those notes in A. So what was very interesting about tonight's tasting is the fact that I liked both of these. I gave them the same score, and I said I had a slight preference for the one that seemed a little more traditional, the Blade and Bow. Probably the headline, though, for this tasting is how good the wheat penny is. That's a really nice pour. I'm still getting that cucumber note, which is probably something to do with the toasted and what was it, black cherry? Black cherry wood finish? Black cherry turns into cucumber? I don't freaking know. But that's really nice. It finishes in sort of a sour spot. It's got a little bit of sour through the whole palate, which definitely sets it apart, but I'm not finding it like off-putting. So wow, what a fascinating tasting. I definitely learned a lot. Fascinating one tonight. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was very unusual and interesting tonight. Talk about educational. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.